Good morning. Welcome to episode 106 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the drilling, construction, and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yorty. Happy Earth Day, drillers. What are you doing to better our planet? I want you to think about all the great opportunities we have right now to install ground source geothermal, to protect groundwater by being the groundwater professionals upholding every important piece of water quality and quantity, and how your drilling crews can be the ones defining where these forever chemical plumes are going and how we start the remediation process. Finally, looking within our companies, we need to understand what type of environmental steward we're being. Consider the project scraps, PVC, wire, old fittings. I want you to think about what happens with that spent hydraulic fluid and oil from the rig. And finally, how is your business helping support becoming net zero, carbon neutral, and beyond? Here's your homework, drillers. I want you to jump on the internet, search the term embodied carbon. And how does operating our business like it's 1990 versus the 21st century truly impact the future of our grandchildren's children? This week in the news, we hear the latest on the environmental impact statement for the Colorado River Basin. The driller's very own J.J. Smith, our Washington, D.C. correspondent, was there to talk to Commissioner Touton and learn more about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. Our feature this week is an interview with Rachel from Sustainable Westchester. She is the Director of Commercial Clean Heating and Cooling. She's going to talk about all the great things that are happening at Sustainable Westchester and the future of ground source geothermal. But before we get into all this great news, let's slow down, take a minute, talk about how unsafe acts and unsafe conditions on the job not only impact the employee, but our entire community. This week in safety, it's the OSHA week and actually the World Memorial Day for Workers, which takes place for the US on April 25th. The event includes virtual OSHA Awareness Conference, which starts today, April 22nd at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., a Workers' Memorial Expo, which is Wednesday, April 24th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Francis Perkins Building in Washington, D.C. And finally, a Workers' Memorial Day ceremony, which is Thursday, April 25th, 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. virtually and in person. Here's the statement. When the nation first observed Workers' Memorial Day on April 28, 1970, an estimated 38 U.S. workers suffered fatal on-the-job injuries each day, and many more endured debilitating respiratory disease and other life-altering illnesses related to workplace exposure. Today, work-related injuries in the U.S. claim about 15 people's lives a day. In 2022, a reported 5,486 workers suffered fatal injuries, an increase of 296 workers' deaths from 2021. This year, the Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and the Mine Safety Health Administration, OSHA and MSHA, will remind the nation of the importance of protecting workers as families, friends, coworkers, and communities at large gather across the country for Workers' Memorial Day. The world event is Sunday, April 28th, to honor people who didn't come home at the end of their shift. Here's the quote from Doug Parker. As we honor our fallen workers on Workers' Memorial Day, we must remember that behind each workplace fatality, there are loved ones enduring unimaginable grief. Thank you, Assistant Secretary of OSHA, Doug Parker. He continues with, it's for the lost workers and those left behind that we continue to fight for every worker's right to a safe working environment. Our mission at OSHA is to ensure that when someone leaves for work, they know they'll come home safe at the end of the day to the arms of their families and loved ones. To commemorate Workers' Memorial Day, the department will host a week-long series of events, and we recap those right at the beginning. So I want you to think about that. And let's take a moment right now. There were 6 men on the Keys Bridge in Baltimore that were working on the road surface, covering potholes, that did not come home. You know, that was an unforeseen condition, right? But think about how often unsafe acts take up these injuries and deaths. It's 80% of the time. Let's go out and be smart and safe and make sure everybody comes home today and throughout their career. Thank you. This week in the news, JJ Smith, our Washington, D.C. correspondent, does it again. The Bureau of Reclamation expects to complete a draft environmental impact statement for the Colorado River Basin by December 2024. And the environmental impact statement will determine operations for the Colorado River, Glen Canyon, and Hoover Dam for the 20 years beyond 2026. Bureau Commissioner Camille Touton told the Driller, the Bureau is working on alternative development stages for operation post-2026 for the Colorado River Basin, with the goal to have a draft environmental impact statement by the end of the year. This is a big deal. Thank you, JJ, for being in this meeting. And we have talked about what the impact statement looks like. We've seen what the upper river basin states have said. We've talked about the lower river basin states. If you look at Lake Mead and Hoover Dam, we talk about the amount of people. You know, it's about 20 million for the Hoover Dam, and the country of Mexico expects water out of there. So let's continue. Further, once the draft environmental impact statement is complete, it will be made available for public comment, which would include comments from states affected. This comes from John Watts, senior counselor to the commission. He continues, the final would be sometime later in 2025 that we would see the impact statement. The Colorado River Basin spans 1,500 miles across 7 U.S. states and Mexico, and provides water for more than 40 million people, fuels hydropower, supports 5.5 million acres of agricultural land and agricultural communities across the Western U.S., and is crucial resource for 30 tribal nations. We've learned this. We know how important this is. We know why Navajo Nation versus the United States has spent so much time talking about this. They continue with, despite improved hydrology during 2023 and 2024, a 23-year-long drought in the Western U.S. prior to those years produced record low water levels at Lake Powell, which is formed by Glen Canyon Dam, and Lake Mead, which is formed by Hoover Dam. You can go right now and see a March impact study that says we're at 1,077 feet. 2 years ago, we were at 1,036 feet. This is a big deal. But just because we've had these crazy atmospheric rivers and Pineapple Express massive rainstorms, and we've seen this surplus, and we've seen, hey, we're 86% back to capacity, we released more water. We gave senior rights for water, more opportunity to be able to produce more crops and operate. But we're seeing that water dwindle. This drought that we talk about prompted the federal government to pursue a comprehensive effort to address the ongoing drought and to strengthen water security across the region. This effort is titled the Conservation Pilot Program, which is designed to support water management and conservation efforts to improve water efficiency, ultimately to protect the short-term sustainability of the Colorado River system. I want you to think about Colorado River Compact at 15 million acre feet of water is supposed to be giving Mexico 1 million to 1.5 million acre feet a year. Texas and New Mexico are impacted by these allotments where Colorado is to push water down. You look at Nebraska and their work to be able to secure North River Platte Basin water. There's lots going on here. Go to the Driller, check out JJ's article. Thank you, JJ, for being the boots on the ground and getting the conversations that we need. For this week's featured professional, we have Rachel with Sustainable Westchester, and we're going to talk about workforce development, all the cool things they have going on down there, and just the opportunity that is renewable energy and ground source geothermal. How are you doing, Rachel?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today, Brock.
It's awesome to have you. Go ahead and describe what you're up to and your role and all the cool things you got going on.
Sure. So Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit consortium of member municipalities. We launched out of a grassroots movement a decade ago to create the first community choice aggregation for renewable electricity. We have 155,000 subscribers today. So we were the first in New York State and we're the largest to date. And from there, we've worked to aggregate our municipal members' power to create clean energy acceleration programs. And we launched the commercial clean heating and cooling program 5 years ago. That was when the gas moratorium first took place in Westchester. And we saw that new construction needed an alternative since they didn't have access to gas. And we were bringing forward air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. We pretty quickly realized that there were pieces missing in terms of both efficiency and equity. And that's when we turned our focus to scaled up ground source heat pumps. And now we're talking about them as thermal energy networks.
Thermal energy networks was the buzzword last week at the Albany, New York Geothermal Conference. How much of that is a focus for Sustainable Westchester?
Quite a bit. At the heart of Sustainable Westchester's work is community benefits. And we see thermal energy networks as a key technology for delivering community benefits in an equitable and efficient way, as I was saying. So we're really excited about the scale of them to bring in organized labor. We're excited about the career opportunities that come along with that and the workforce development opportunities that are involved that we believe that we can help to develop in partnership with all of the incredible stakeholders that have been leading the way in other sectors of clean energy. Sustainable Westchester has been a leader in the deployment of solar and community solar across Westchester, and we have seen firsthand how important workforce development programs have been for that industry. So we're really excited to be, building the geothermal industry and thermal energy network industry.
And just a few weeks ago, you had a job fair for this?
We did, yeah. So we had a job fair across all areas of clean energy technology. So as I mentioned, solar was a part of that, home energy efficiency, large scale energy efficiency, and geothermal and air source heat pumps, EV charging, wind was part of the conversation. And the goal of this clean energy jobs and resource fair was to be a bit of a matchmaker between the clean energy employers and the potential employees. There are people who are really enthusiastic about the future of our economy and our energy system. And we were really glad to give them an opportunity to connect with employers to learn about the skills that they're looking for, because many of these folks have great experience in other industries that they can transfer and bring into the clean energy industry. It was a fantastic day, a great show of participants, and our keynote speaker from the Interstate Renewable Energy Council really delivered an exciting address to the crowd about the projected employment opportunities, the volume of employment opportunities, and across such a broad range of job types. Really, there's a space for everyone in the clean energy industry.
It's really fun because it's like a whole new builder generation. And that generation spans from individuals that have 5-10 years left before retirement to brand new, individuals that have just gotten out of high school that are looking for that path of making a difference. It's really fun to see the all just this wide range of ages. Did you see that at the fair?
We did. We had a student group come, and they were testing out their interviewing skills, their networking skills, not interview, their networking skills, really just getting their feet wet. How do I have professional conversations and position myself as a potential fit for this company? How do I ask questions of this employer so that I can get better insight to figure out if I'd like to be part of what they're driving to accomplish? And then on the flip side, I mean, people who had spent 20 years in manufacturing components for uh, different, large scale technologies, and people who had backgrounds in education, and really everything you can imagine, finance. And I'm so glad that they're all in the room. I think that with the interest of people as it is today, there's no way that the clean energy economy can lose, because really brilliant people are interested, and the businesses that are active today have such demand for their services. And that's why Sustainable Westchester is putting our time and effort into this project for workforce development, because if we want to see the fruits of our labor, from grassroots, from advocacy, from organizing and program development, if we want to see it actually come to fruition, if we want implementation, then workforce development has to be part of the equation. And thankfully, it's a part of the equation that really helps us to reach. In New York State, we have the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And someone that I know who's quite brilliant says, it could just as easily have been the Community Protection and Climate Leadership Act. And he is so right, because centering community protection is essential to achieving a just transition to a clean energy economy. It's really it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's a once and possibly a many generation opportunity.
I equate it to no different than building the national parks back in the 1930s and the
Yes.
opportunity we had there. And you're absolutely right. It's right now, if you look at the 161 million Americans that go to work every day, and let's say just less than 1 million work in, the green energy, the renewable energy sector. Yes, we all have different corporate companies that have their initiatives, and you have all these pieces, but to choose right now to install chargers for EVs or get involved in solar, or my favorite, geothermal drilling. And that's where I saw you come up to Albany, and you had a packed room to talk workforce development in the future there, just for ground source geothermal, loops, geothermal, ground source geothermal heat pumps. That was the big announcement that, hey, everybody, we need to make sure we're marketing correctly. So how was that?
Oh, it was a dream. It was a dream. I mean, I remember going to NIGEO a few years prior, and really, with the Utility Thermal Energy Network and Jobs Act, that's when I think everything changed in New York. So I remember going a few years prior, and the attendance was just, much lower, and it was the conversations were about exciting developments in the technology and about how do we get people to understand what we're talking about, and how do we get people's attention, and how do we make this fun and cool. And guess what? No one's really asking how we make it fun and cool anymore. Now people are saying, whoa, how do we help our clients reach the Inflation Reduction Act adder for these projects? Build America, Buy America, Build America, prevailing wage. How do we make this a reality so that we're standing up these renewable energy infrastructure projects on the legs of local economy and family sustaining wages? And that is, like, as I said, it's a dream. It's a dream, and the workforce development conversation that day is something that I'm just so proud of. I'm so excited about. And the questions, I mean, nobody left the room. Anyone who's moderated or been part of a panel, people do have to hop in and out, right? Nobody left the room. Everybody asked questions. It was fantastic. I'm so grateful to NIGEO for organizing that, and to all the panelists for their meaningful contributions, not just that day, obviously, but the way that they've been leading in workforce development and in geothermal and in drilling. And that's something that I would love to dig into with you. Why why drilling? And that's because in Westchester County, New York, where I had been leading this program for building decarbonization, commercial buildings, I would convince a building owner that geothermal was the way to go, the most efficient. They weren't going to regret their choice. And then they would say, okay, Rachel, who can help me do this job? And I would give them the numbers, 3 people, 4 people. They'd reach out to all of them and no one would call them back. And that's the implementation problem. And not because those geothermal designers aren't, they're professionals and they do good work, but they're inundated, they're overwhelmed with demand. And it's just unrealistic to expect one person, or, a team can only do as much as their staff can, and you can't staff up if people aren't trained. And the drilling part is a major area, a bottleneck. That's, it's a major bottleneck in the deployment, because even once you get the projects rolling forward, they've heard back from the geothermal designer, they're excited about it, and then it comes time to schedule the driller, and the timeline gets thrown off and it's delayed. And then they might tell someone else that it got delayed, the drill. So we really want to support the drilling industry, which is such a fantastic industry that's done so much to build America to where it is today. I mean, talk about our drinking water, right? And we want to support them. And I'm so glad that NYSERDA has programs in New York, like the on-the-job training program. But it's not enough just to say, here's some money for someone for the first 6 months of their job, because becoming a driller takes longer than 6 months. So that's where we want to create pre-apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship programs. We want to work with both union and non-union sources to create as many opportunities and pathways for individuals, because as many people as there are in America is the different number of ways that there are to participate in geothermal.
It's wild. Drilling has always been somewhat of a secret society, and when you really, as you say, dig into it, as we dig into it, of the construction workforce, that's just a little over 8 million people. When you dive into who's connected to drilling, it's less than 1.2 million. And when you get into actual drillers, it's 14 to 19,000 Americans. So having programs like you and Sustainable Westchester, what you're championing, NYSERDA, what we're seeing at New York Geo, what we're seeing with IXPA, we're kind of in shell shock. Like we've never had, you just mentioned, you went, oh yeah, there's on-the-job training funding. If you're in the state of New York and you deal with NYSERDA, your trainee, there's a program, check it out, folks. I don't want to say the wrong terminology there, but NYSERDA will 100% walk you through it for jobs that are happening in New York for great New York companies. But we've never had somebody say, okay, build the training program. Tell us what you need. How would you like to train it? We've never had an opportunity with the IRA and the Justice 40 initiative of being able to put 40% of that money back into underserved communities through workforce development and deployment, and talk about getting to be a builder generation, but also get to build your community. Like, I can't scream it enough to the drilling industry right now. And thank you, along with what the state of New York is doing to blaze the way, because we've just never seen it before. And so we're slowly ramping, but as you've said, man, we need it now. We need it now and fast.
We do. And I'd love to talk a little bit about the demand that Sustainable Westchester is ramping up. So we're working with the city of Yonkers and the city of Peekskill. The city of Yonkers is one of the largest in New York State, and the city of Peekskill is right next to the former nuclear power plant that's been decommissioned because of safety concerns. These cities are interested in and are they're devoting their time over the next year to developing, to working toward positioning themselves for a thermal energy network development. And at the same time, Sustainable Westchester is providing technical assistance to decarbonize large buildings in these cities. So the market is really being supported for large scale deployment of drills going in the ground to get that energy, that heat that's right beneath our feet. It's such a, it's this proposition that once we speak with municipal leaders about how the energy is right there underneath their feet, it's local, it's non-combustible, it's safer, it's cleaner. You talk about air quality concerns and how this can help alleviate them. How many of the kids in the neighborhood have asthma, and we want to see those things get better over time, not worse. So that's the reason why, we see communities putting their attention toward developing these projects, which will take time. But it's also, I just want to say that the demand is so here in New York, and that we're really grateful for organizations like yours and NYGEO and IXPA, who are working with the industry to grow it and have been leading the industry for so many years.
You're absolutely right. And New York's, blazing the way, but, Chicago and Illinois are popping up. We see Massachusetts, we see Colorado, we see
Minnesota.
Michigan, Minnesota, Washington. So just like you alluded to earlier with from union to non-union, there are residential properties to be done. There's small commercial. And then if you're dedicated and you could be somewhere like Yonkers, converting a major city to something that is going to be firm and stable, and our children's grandchildren and beyond are going to be appreciative of. I don't know if there's a more cool thing to be part of right now.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find something cooler. And another area where we're stoking demand is in the nonprofit world. Yes, Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit, and we're excited to serve more nonprofits because nonprofits serve the community. Nonprofits are our food banks, our houses of worship, our shelters, our community centers. nature centers, and so much nonprofit hospitals and medical centers, nonprofit universities. There are, so many community services that come through nonprofits. And with the Department of Energy's support, Sustainable Westchester is able to help up to 32 nonprofits across New York State to implement high impact energy efficiency projects. And we're prioritizing geothermal. Those competitive applications, those that are implementing geothermal, will be at the top of the list. And we'll be able to provide them with up to $200,000 per building. So we're doing, we see this as a big opportunity, and we're really excited to have the DOE supporting this through nonprofits in New York State.
So final question. You got the job fair going on. You have all of these geothermal projects. You have a driller audience right now with scientists and engineers and many drilling companies of many different disciplines on the East Coast and across the country. You have an open floor to say whatever you want to get them to New York or get them involved in geothermal right now.
I would say that New York is the place to be. I mean, it's not for me to tell the industry, they are the experts. But the market is booming. The demand is here, and we need you. We need you to come and drill, and we need you to come and innovate. And we're having discussions about how we can create a driller world. This is a new, exciting idea. What if we create, we have a plot of land where drillers can test out new drilling techniques. These are the kinds of discussions that are happening, and we've got a lot of support to make these things a reality. And we can't do it. I have no background in drilling. I'm not, so I can't do it without you. It's only through partnerships. So, come lead the way in New York.
I love it. And that's exactly what we need. Industry is, we need to start thinking about innovating and the time and the all the opportunities we have, but we're too busy. And now there's funds and there's innovation. And let's say you just need to develop one or two new drillers, and you could get to New York and put them on a project that's multiple holes, multiple muscle memory, good experiences, versus when we go from a water well or a caisson or something where it's one hole and then we're way across the county or state to another one. We're talking about being able to professionally develop our young individuals, our new drillers. Heck, maybe they're about to retire from the auto manufacturers and they're not young, but they want to be drillers now. We have this opportunity to go in and do network geothermal, these big projects, and recreate good experiences to make great drillers. And Rachel's saying there's going to be a drillers world. I'm going to drillers world. I may have to apply for ambassador of drillers world. That sounds so cool.
We would be honored to have you represent us on an international stage, Brock.
Well, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for episode 106 of the Driller Newscast. Let's be good stewards of the environment. Let's be good stewards to our employees, with making sure that we have the best standard operating procedures, that we're thinking about unsafe acts and conditions. Got to pay attention to water allotment, quality and quantity. Check out what's going on with the Ogallala right now. That summit just wrapped up. We'll talk about it next week. Thank you, Rachel, with Sustainable Westchester and the Drillers World and all of the concepts. Drillers, we're out there right now drilling ground source geothermal across the country. Look at the initiatives by states and national entities. It's amazing what we can do when we're communicating and working together. Go check out the Geothermal Drillers Association. Some letters out there. There's a press release. If you're in geothermal drilling, you should hop on, take a look, see if it fits your mission. Go out, be safe. Let's all take a moment on Sunday, April 28th. Think about individuals that have been impacted by unsafe acts, unsafe conditions. We have the men on the Keys Bridge, plus 40 men in trench collapses in 2022. We've seen heat exhaustion. We've seen excavation fatalities this year and last year. It's all unacceptable. And it's impacting more than just our business operations. It impacts an entire community and family. Thanks, everyone.